Yep.
Okay, I'll call to order the regular board meeting for September 26th, 2023. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Southgate's mission statement is learning for life. Vision statement is Southgate Community Schools, the best choice for students and parents. Brings us to the approval of the agenda.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I have a motion by Dr. Pomponio. Is there support? Support. Support by Mr. Green. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have an agenda. And the first item on that agenda is presentations. This is the ESSER budget update.
Yes, thank you. I'm actually going to go ahead and just do that from here. So in December of 2021, we had our first budget for ESSER due. At that time, we were responsible for budgeting about 66% of it, which was at that time, or it still is, $3,627,505. We submitted that to the federal government. They gave us some feedback. They approved some expenses. They didn't approve other expenses. And we did have to revise our plan a bit. The revision in compliance with ESSER, in order to stay compliant and keep the money, is that we have some public input every time we either do an amendment or we do the budget initially. So our first round, we did provide that input in our initial survey and initial presentation in December of 2021. So we did capture some more input. We had a survey that went out to staff and it went out through our Titan Times for parents. We were able to pull in some information about the perspectives. We did have a pretty strong showing of staff that provided input. We basically asked them their input on what we were using the money for, which was additional personnel for instructional and behavioral support, coordinator attendance and engagement, transportation, personnel software for virtual learning, dedicated building sub-coverage. We had not been doing that prior to the pandemic. HVAC repair and cleaning, medical personnel support and PPE, additional cleaning and reduced class size. By far, the overwhelming approval was on the reduced class size. And I would personnel coordinator oversight for student attendance down from 267 estimated down to 129,000. We maintained our district transportation for school programming, but increased it to 1 million spread over 2 years. So that was an increase that gave us the rest of that 33% that we budgeted was into district transportation. We put in 1.178 million approximately in class size reduction. That was a new plan. We were able to increase the staffing money that we attributed to our staffing for virtual learning. So we still have quite a few families, and we have about 350 some students that are still in our virtual programming. And that was increased to 1.5 million over 2 years. We increased our costs in providing steady building substitute coverage that did not travel between buildings and stayed committed. Increased that to 710 over 2 years. And we removed HVAC repair, replacement, additions, and air duct cleaning. The federal government did not approve that expense, so that was removed, and we have instead shifted a lot of that to our sinking fund. So it's not that it's not happening, but it's not through ESSER. COVID mitigation and response, medical personnel, we increased our medical personnel support from 200,000 to 360,000 over 2 years. Increased PPE from 10 to 19,000 over 2 years. The legal fees that we had thought we might be able to cover, the federal government did not approve those, so they disallowed them. We had to remove them from our budget. We thought we might increase custodial costs, and while they covered bonuses that we provided during that time period, they would not cover ongoing custodial support. So we did not actually spend any additional money from ESSER on that. And that leaves us to the final budgeted amount over the 3-year period of 100%, or $5.4 million approximately. That has to all be spent by June 2024. So we are on track to do that, and we will be maintaining this amended budget then through the end of that term. And this will have met one of those compliance benchmarks that ensures that that money stays with us. So that's all.
Any questions for Stan? Dr. Pomponio?
So what did we get for the 200,000 for the medical support, and then what was the difference between the increase over the 2 years?
So as far as medical support, we covered a nurse in that. We also covered our medical assistants. So we had some pandemic support, medical support assistants, and their responsibility was doing the contact tracing early on.
Right.
And they're still managing our control over and compliance with the county over how we handle COVID cases currently. So as far as their decrease,
It increased to 360 over the 2 years.
Right. It increases because when we budgeted it initially, we were only budgeting 66% of it, so it was for 1 year. And at that time, when we looked at it for 2 years, instead of, it ended up being only 360,000 over a 2-year period versus 400,000 for 2 years. So when we gave you that initial budget in 2021, that was expected to be a 1 year, over 1 year, this is what we would spend this on. So when we took the remaining 33%, then we had to analyze, and what are we going to spread over 2 years? What's just going to be a 1-year cost moving forward? So we didn't spend as much on it the second year, and those are continuing to decrease.
But it says increase to approximately 360 for over 2 years, but the 200,000, was that for 1 year?
That was for 1 year.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the automatic increase for a second year would be 400,000. We actually decreased it a little bit, but yes, it did increase because we extended we budgeted the rest of the money that was coming to us and
Okay.
put it there.
And so we still need that staff continued after ESSER?
Well, that staff is helpful. Right now, we're looking at where can we find that money in other grant funds, because it is a big responsibility on our administrative assistants when they're managing medical plans and support. So it has been a big help, especially as it comes to diabetic student support.
Oh, I think we
Buildings.
absolutely need that support.
Yeah.
But, so after ESSER, we're gonna have to fund that ourselves?
We either fund it ourselves or through a different source.
Okay.
Right. I mean,
Okay.
we'll fund it ourselves one way or another if we keep it on.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Green?
Approximately on that note, and you don't have to give me 100% specifics, but ballpark, when the ESSER money does run out and we're back to some sort of normalcy, like what positions, how many jobs, where do we have to redistribute money or make some decisions on staff or other things? Where are we at? Is it a lot? Is it a few?
We've been very conservative operationally, so we continue to add to our fund balance every year because we're making every attempt to maintain the operational space that we need once this goes away. we know that there's going to be some costs that we have to absorb. We also had increases in our at-risk budget, so we are transferring some of these costs over for long-term. There are some positions that may not continue into our post-pandemic phase, which, behavior guides may not, for instance, or behavior support may not continue. There are other positions that may not as well. Right now, we're weaning ourselves down. We had a lot of support year one. We took the bulk of it, the 66%, and covered it in year one. Year two, we've reduced that down to 33, so our budget's absorbing about 33% of that. So we're strategically scaffolding it down so that we're able to fund it one way or another, either through at-risk or other.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Was there any other separate PPE money for industries or entities like the school systems? And is there anything post-pandemic that we would find in that
Well,
grant?
a lot of grants are coming from the state because the state didn't use all of the money that was given to them by the federal government. So there are grants right now, and you'll see those in your curriculum updates, like 31AA, for instance. That's a residual amount of ESSER grant money that's coming down, and we're able to fund additional social workers with it. We're able to fund other pieces. 98C was another grant that came through. So we've gotten a lot of ancillary grants that we're also using to help mitigate some of the impact of it going.
Good, okay.
But
thank
those
you.
will also be one time, so
Good, yeah.
we have to
yeah,
look at it very holistically.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other
Yeah,
questions?
I just had a question on the legal fees that were not approved by the federal government. Did we, were we anticipating them? Was that a county?
No, we just knew that at the time with the mask wearing legislation, or the mask wearing lawsuit that we had to defend, we thought that might be a good use of federal money, but they didn't think so.
Okay,
So
thank you.
we knew it at the time we were budgeting.
Thanks.
All right. Move on to the next agenda item, which is citizens' comments. Member of the public may address the board for up to 3 minutes. Please fill out a form at the beginning of the meeting so we have your information. Anybody who wants to speak, just come on up to the mic when you're called on, give us your name and address, and then you got 3 minutes. So, is there anyone who'd like to speak tonight? Yes, sir. Right over here.
Hi, Philip Bazzo, Mary Bazzo, Alexandria Bazzo. They attend North Point, 2nd grade. Thank you. There's not much I can say in 3 minutes, except that some of the foods that are being served are rated as carcinogens by the World Health Organization and by the American Cancer Association, such as hot dogs, corn dogs, pepperoni. I prepared a specific chart, which I have colored charts to circulate to give you an idea, but there's many questions which are unanswered with regards to, I don't know the saturated fats, I don't know the cholesterol, I don't know the total carbs. Excuse me, I do know the total carbs, but there's much information missing. I asked for additional information such as added sugars, which if you go to any store and look at the box, look at the can, you'll find that those are some of the requirements. Most importantly is probably the concept of metabolic inflammation. Is anybody familiar with the concept of metabolic inflammation? Thank you. Metabolic inflammation occurs in some of our foods, especially processed meats, that result in actually an inflammatory condition, a low-grade inflammatory condition. And so much of the saturated fats in this diet that I see here in the SCS has what is referred to as metabolically inflammatory ingredients. And what I would ask, I know I only have 3 minutes, what I would ask is that if one can take a look at the spreadsheet here, I asked for additional information, including saturated fat, which is not listed for any of these items, cholesterol, total sugars, added sugars, but also there's something called the Healthy Eating Index, the Dietary Inflammatory Index, which addresses that issue, insulin index, addictive food index. Heart disease developing in our children as early as 10 years old. Cancers take decades and decades to develop. And the concept here is, as recognized by the U.S. Mayor's resolution, which is entitled, "A Plant-Based Approach Has Promised to Address Chronic Disease, Environmental and Fiscal Burdens Facing Cities Across the Nation." They adopted a resolution recommending a plant-based diet, moving away from basically a meat-based diet for a number of reasons, primarily because a animal-based diet has the saturated fats, has the TMAOs, has the other carcinogenic properties. So my request is to just have Mr. Rodriguez and Maria, the dietitian, take a look at this and see if they can fill it in and give us some feedback. I just focus on the meats because those are the areas where the carcinogens are most active. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have anything to say, Ms. Mazzo? Alexandria? How about berries, greens? Pardon me? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Let's go.
Okay.
Now to see Mama.
All right, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which consists of minutes from September 12th, 2023 regular meeting and the HR update. I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Pomponio. Is there support?
Support.
Mr. Lamas? Any discussion?
Thank you so much.
Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. So we have no action items. Last item on the agenda is the adjournment. I'll entertain a motion on the adjournment.
Why does everybody look at me when we do
You're next to me.
King of the
that?
German.
Mr. President,
Screen.
I'd like a motion to adjourn.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Green to adjourn the meeting. Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Dr. Pomponio. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you.